shout out?
Sure.
We've got a guest in the studio today, a future creationist. His name is Luke, and so I just want to give a little shout out to my friend Luke. Maybe we can, hey, we were playing a little bit before the show. Maybe they can throw in some of the footage of Luke playing. That'd be fun. He's going to be a great creationist speaker one day.
Absolutely. And
see it happening.
Has a Facebook page to do with creation.
That's right. He does 4 kids. That's right. I just saw that. I liked it. Yeah. Go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Eric Hoven, and you can like one of the pages that I like, which is Luke's page, which is kind of cool, Creation for Kids.
Hey, we were talking before the break about, you were talking about your experience, Jay, in education and so on, and sort of bringing us up to date. Many people wanting to know about science these days will look to perhaps science education programs in the media, and one person that springs to mind is a gentleman by the name of Bill Nye, the science guy, who seems to come on TV a lot wearing a bow tie, presumably because he's watched Doctor Who and thinks it's cool. But, I mean, probably some people would think that he's quite an authority on science. Is that right? Is that why people are watching him?
Very popular, very talented, gifted speaker, and he knows a fair amount about science. And what happens is he gets on there and he talks about electricity and gravity. He does a great job.
That's right.
In conveying truth and excitement in a way that kids can understand and be entertained by it at the same time. But he could cross the line and start getting into a different type of science, which we call historical science, making guesses about what happened a long time ago, and people will just assume that everything he's saying is true there as well, because he is a source of authority for them. So whatever he says scientifically, that goes, because he's a science guy and you trust him for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
He said some things recently that really concerned you, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a YouTube video that went viral. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people saw this in a very short period of time, and he was kind of a diatribe against creationism and against anyone who would believe in creation. Made a lot of very bold statements about, anyone who would believe in that's kind of crazy, and he said, if you want to believe in that yourself, that's fine, but don't teach that to your kids. We need them. We need scientists. We need people who can think clearly, and that really shook a lot of people, and Christians don't know how to respond.
Yeah. So when if people come to you and say, look, Bill Nye, the science guy, has said this, that creationism is nonsense, and clearly things evolved over millions of years in the past, and so on, because they've seen him say that. How are you going to respond? What's going to be your strategy as you talk to them on that subject?
One of the first things that I point out is that it kind of evokes the fallacy of equivocation. It sounds real deep. All that means is when you set two things equal that really aren't. And what he says is that evolution and science are the same thing.
Yes.
So if you're rejecting evolution, you're rejecting science.
Yes.
But science has given us cell phones and cures diseases and all that.
That's
so
right.
Do we really want to reject that? So a lot of Christians are like, well, no, you can't reject that. You got to believe in science. And science is evolution, so you can't reject evolution either. So if you're rejecting evolution, rejecting science, and you're crazy, and you're just not living in the real world. So it's a dilemma for a lot of Christians. What do we do with that? But again, as you guys have pointed out, many times on your show, there are two different sciences that are talked about there. One, the operational science, the making the cell phones, curing diseases, great stuff. You do that in the laboratory. You can repeat it over and over. You can experiment with it directly. That's not where the argument is. Creationists and evolutionists are not debating operational science. But when he starts talking about a Big Bang, 13.7 billion years ago, or life forming from non-living chemicals 3.8 billion years ago, now we're talking about operational science, which is not something you can repeat in a laboratory. It's not something you can test directly, and we weren't around there to observe it when it happened. So it's making a lot of guesses and assumptions as to what happened in the past, and those are driven by your worldview and your starting point. And Bill Nye has a different starting point than we do as Christians, so he's going to come up with a lot of different conclusions.